Hayes Turner's ordeal began when another black farmer was accused of murder. Some white men approached Hayes demanding to know the other man's whereabouts. Hayes said he didn't know. To continue the story, here's the museum's building superintendent and coordinator, Howard Eugene Stinnett.
They beat him in his face, they cut off his ears, and then they cut off his private part, and then they lynched him. A few days later, then his wife got the word of what had happened, and she said she's going to have him charged for murder. By making that statement, and in a county where they're lynching, they didn't like her, so they went after her. And he drug her back to the area where they had lynched her husband. But instead of lynching at the time, they threw gas and motor oil on her and set her on fire. But she was screaming so loud that one of the men in the mob couldn't stand it, and he yelled out, "Shut that nigger up." So then this is when they lynched her to shut her up. And after they had lynched her, she had died, they left, and a few days later they came back to examine the body because they were still angry about that statement. So then that's when they noticed that life was still in the body, which the baby was still alive. And one of the men took out his knife and cut her stomach open, and the baby's head came out. And he gave out 2 fetus cries because it was hungry. So rather than to help the baby, he just grabbed the baby by the head, snatched it out of her stomach, dropped it on the ground, took the heel of his shoe, and crushed the baby's head and kicked it into a hole. And then they saw 2 cats eating intestines of her husband. So they picked up the 2 cats and they put them in her stomach where the baby once was and sewed it into her stomach. And then they bet money on which cat will claw the way out of her stomach.
Now, look behind you. Near the doorway, you'll find a painting draped in black. Lois Mailou Jones painted this portrait of John Henry Williams. In 1921, Williams was convicted of murdering a white woman and handed over to a lynching mob.
He knew that he was going to die, so he started singing a song, "Near My God to Thee." And he started singing louder and louder and louder. They told him to shut up. He refused. He kept right on singing. By the time they got to where they had lynched him, he had cut off everything on his face, which what I mean by that is his nose, his lips, his ears, and let it drop as he was walking. But the amazing thing was he never once moaned out in pain. He just kept right on singing. Even when they was pulling the rope around his neck, he was trying to sing "Near My God to Thee." So we have it up as a strong black man refused to give in regardless what the white man did. But I also tell people when I speak of white, I'm not just speaking of color. I'm speaking of condition of a person's mind, because there are black people today will do harm to their own out there today, just like those people did to our ancestors back during that time.
Today, killers still target African American neighborhoods, but they don't bring a rope. Look back towards Hayes and Mary Turner. To the left, in the corner, you'll find a doorway covered with plexiglass. Please take a moment to look at this exhibit and think about what it means. It's titled, "Now We Lynch Ourselves."